KUČKA is an electronic artist who has been around for a few years now. We've seen her name pop up on Flume's last album, mixtape thing that, you know, was really beloved. People loved the hell out of that thing. Wasn't a big fan myself personally, but I was definitely interested to see what this new album, this debut album here from would sound like. Wrestling is sadly not really anything to do with wrestling. It would have been cool to see like a Kane feature on here, but you know, you can't always get what you want. It is still though a really good album. It's a really cool combination of R&B, I guess you could call it, a bit of future bass, UK bass, a bit of Wonky thrown in there too, all the cool hipster genre tags that you could find for any form of electronic music. And I say that as a diss to myself because honestly, I always seem to like these kinds of genre tags whenever I stumble across artists that are in this umbrella of, you know, UK bass, future bass and all that jazz. And this album here is no exception. You've got the track Drowning, which is almost like a deconstructed club banger. Honestly, there is a bit of that element thrown into some of these tracks, just the way that, you know, the vocals get manipulated in the background. You know, you have these really cool samples that are thrown in, but the catchy hooks make this album so accessible and so earwormy. You've got Ascension with these weird trippy vocals in the background paired with KUČKA's voice. That's already pretty weird and kind of nasally and bizarre, but it never really makes much of a problem on this album, at least once you get used to it. I will say the first few tracks initially weren't quite doing it for me, but once I started to really lock myself in, these tracks really start to pop. And this track particularly just has this Aluna George feel to it. Like, Aluna George, underrated as hell by the way, but have some really great tracks in their own right with, you know, the weird bassy garage feel to their tracks with the singing, you know, the off-kilter weird vocals. It's all there in this song, so if you like anything that Aluna George has ever done, I think you'd like this. Joyride, once again, with the really great use of vocal sampling. This time it's dizzying and a bit kind of jarring at first with those vocals, but it sounds great once you kind of wrap your head around what's going on. It's actually a really bloody well produced track, and you've got that kind of like Jesse Lanza feel to it as well, who is another artist in this field that's probably even more out there and adventurous with their sound. But just imagine that with a more accessible catchiness to it, and you've basically got most of this album and this track particularly. I said at one point as well that her vocals can be quite weird and strange, but it never seems to become much of an issue. In fact, she manages to hold her vocals really well, particularly on tracks like Sky Brown, where she's reaching into a pretty high falsetto, but it really manages to work because the production matching her is really great. And once again, she just sounds so cool. She sounds really like airy, and she kind of feels like she's floating over this instrumental. It's cool. The highlight of the album though is No Good For Me. If there's going to be a track that pops off and becomes a bit of a sleeper hit or anything like that, unless it already has started catching on, I'm not entirely sure. But you know, once this video goes out there, and if it hasn't caught on yet, and you know, it one day does, I want to take credit for my prediction, because I think this has the most potential to do that. This track is so damn catchy. What a fucking bop. Seriously, No Good For Me could be like a future club hit. I think if someone remixed it or something like that, because obviously that always happens with chart songs. Someone remixes like a lesser known track and makes it a bit more houseier or something like that. But even without that, this track is just so catchy. The vocals are great here. The best instrumental on the whole thing. The way it just kind of goes boop, 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 boop. I love the hell out of this one, honestly. This is a really great song. And yeah, just God damn. You've got Your World, which has probably the most emotive singing, I think, on the whole album. Definitely has the most like pouring your heart out there, you know, into someone else with the lyrics. Pretty standard stuff lyrically. And I think No Good For Me actually is pretty standard lyrically too, but these tracks just work in how they sound and how catchy they are. You know, sometimes you don't really care too much about the lyrics if the song just sounds as good as it does, and these two tracks have that quality to them. Very PC music-ish, this one, Your World, I'm talking about here. Just again with the lyrics and the way she's singing, I could totally imagine Charlie XCX doing this, but more specifically I think Hannah Diamond would do something like this as well. I don't know if anyone else agrees with that, by the way. If you have heard this album, please let me know your thoughts on that particularly in the comments, because I totally can picture it in my mind. Now, it's all going so well in this review. I'm saying so many positive things, but I will say the last run of tracks, the final three tracks, really drag this album down. And I don't know if it's just me, but these tracks just feel a bit tepid. Like when you listen to the beats on No Good For Me, Ascension, Drowning, Your World, you just think she's in her bag. Like she's nailing this, she's in her element, she sounds great over these tracks, she's really selling them. But then for the final three tracks, she slows it down. And that's not a bad thing inherently, you know, saying that an artist slowing down their music, doing slower songs is bad. It isn't fair, because why can't she do that? And she can do that, she can, like I'm not saying she can't, but they just don't really click with me. I don't know, man, I just think the slower moving pace to these ones just isn't working. I'm just not sure I'm fully on board with the tone of these tracks. The chorus on Real as well just isn't hitting at all either. This chorus I could do without. Patience is the slowest track, and it is the final track here too. Just don't know if her vocals are suited for this. I think she's really trying to give us something close to a ballad, and it's got really twinkly, lovely melody, but I just think her voice doesn't match it. I think she should have changed her vocal approach for this one. I don't think you can just give a very similar vocal performance, you know, to the rest of the album for a track like this. I think she should have tried something a bit different with her voice to match the instrumental. I'm saying all this now, it could be that in a month's time these really grow on me, but I do think for now I'm just not entirely on board with these tracks, and I think it's a shame, because I think it was on for being a great album, but just slightly stumbles at the end. Not massively stumbling, but just slightly. Regardless of all that though, positive review all round. Very good things to be said about this artist, KUČKA, and the album Wrestling. I think this is really good. I'm going to go 7 out of 10, and I think you would enjoy it too if you liked any of the artists I referenced in this review, or liked how I describe these tracks. I think you'd enjoy what you're going to hear with this release. So yes, thank you for watching this review. Ooh, do have a good day. Subscribe if you have not already. That would be fantastic. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on this album. Tell me what I should review next as well. Have a good day, and goodbye.